Hi, I'm Ernie.
And I'm Ben.
And this is Budget Nerds.
What was all in your mind?
You are not alone.
No, you are not. Ben, welcome back to Budget Nerds. It's been a while. And we're going to be talking about overspending. We thought this would be a great topic to dig into because, no matter how dialed in we are, it happens to us. It happens to every YNABer. So to kick things off, I think the question is, first, what's your approach to weighing the trade-offs? Because, when you overspend in a category, we're teaching YNABers to go through the categories where they have money, weigh the trade-offs of taking money from those categories to cover that overspending. How do you approach it?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I think it's really good just to tell people, hey, overspending is a natural part of budgeting, really. It's going to happen. I'll tell you this, Ernie, I have used YNAB for 7 years almost. Oh, gosh. Actually, it'll be 8 years this year, I think. So it was in 2013 we started. Wow, time's going by fast. And every time I say that, it's longer.
Right.
And it'll be 8 years this year. And there's not been a single month where I haven't overspent on something, right?
Yeah.
So give you guys permission. It's okay to overspend. It happens. But yeah, it's really about weighing trade-offs, like you said. And I think one of the biggest aha moments for me when it came to overspending is that mantra that we talk about a lot is check the budget first.
Yeah.
And to actually avoid overspending, right? If you can, because if you want to weigh the trade-offs on a financial decision, you can't really make that decision after the fact. Like if you say you go out to eat and you overspend on eating out or something like that. You have to cover that overspending, right, from somewhere if you've already done it. But if you actually look at your budget before and see, oh, look, I don't have enough to go out right now, but I still want to go out, you can actually look through your budget and find that money ahead of time and actually know what you're giving up to go out to eat.
And when you do it after, you're usually scrambling, like, oh crap, where am I going to pull this money from,
Exactly. It doesn't feel as good. I mean, you might even make the same decision. Like you might take the money from the same place if you overspend, whereas if you took it out before you spent, but you don't feel as good about it because it's almost like it's almost like the difference between making a decision for yourself and then somebody telling you have to do something, right? Like you might do that thing anyway, but you feel annoyed about it. So
walk us through a situation. Let's say you want to pick up a meal at Chipotle or somewhere like that, right?
Chipotle.
You don't have that's my go-to.
Chipotle guy.
You open the app and you don't have the money.
All right, okay. I want a burrito.
Walk us through what you're thinking.
All right, I want a nice gigantic burrito from Chipotle, not a sponsor. And anyways, and I look at the app and I see I've got $0 in dining out. It's let's say it's the end of the month and I'm running out. But I really do want to get that burrito. And so I start looking through my budget. So I have my phone out, literally scrolling through what can I take some money from? Like what's a lower priority than this burrito right now? And I might look at something something discretionary, like maybe like groceries, if there's anything left at the end of the month, which there never is. So that's not really going to be an option for me. I'm probably going to take it from something like entertainment, because that's something that's been kind of a go-to for me the past year, because we have an entertainment category, but we aren't really going anywhere. So I might take it from something like that. Sometimes I look for a category that's kind of in the same realm, you know what I mean? Like dining out and entertainment for me, you kind of think of them as kind of the same. They're really related, Right. So I don't really feel bad about taking money from there. So I might look at that. But if I don't have anything in there, I might take a little money from auto maintenance or something like that. Like if I'm looking, I'm like, oh, I got $700 sitting in auto maintenance because I haven't had a car repair for a while. It's not going to make that much of a difference if I take $8 from there to go buy a burrito. So long as I'm not doing that every day,
Sure.
Right. So sometimes it depends on what kind of group the category is in.
Okay.
If it's like similar, I feel like it's okay to take the money from there. Or if it's really flush with cash, maybe I can grab some money from that.
So there isn't just this always go-to Rule 3 category that you have. It really varies depending on the time of month, what category you've overspent from, right? Yeah. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And I asked myself a question of like, am I going to regret this in the future if I take money from this category? I think that could be because you could have like an electric bill and the electric bill's due tomorrow, and you take from there, well, you're going to regret it tomorrow, right? Yeah. So, but if I see, it's the 28th of the month and I got $10 in entertainment and I don't have like a date planned or something, it's not going to be a big deal to take from there. I'm not going to regret it in the future, So that's actually a good question to ask. Like, are you going to regret this later?
Yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah, I like that. What about you, Ernie? How do you weigh those trade-offs when you're in the moment like that?
So in the workshop, when I teach rolling with the overspending, I always teach what's the least important category to me right now. And that's what I use in my personal budget as well. And I usually just start at the top. And, sometimes I just know, okay, if I overspend in this category, I know exactly where that money's coming from. And so I just go to it and cover it. But sometimes, I do need to start at the top and just scroll through all my categories and just look at, okay, what is that item? What's the balance? And what do I feel about taking money from here? So, and that varies from month to month. A situation like summer's coming up. Okay. A lot of activities for the boys. If I'm not going to ever pull money from that category, right? We have a category called boys for stuff like that. Right. But if we're getting into the fall and winter, we have a little bit, maybe more money after saving up through the summer. Well, then I know we're not going to be buying anything from that category for the next few months. So I might be more inclined to pull something.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is like, it's a lot about thinking about the future, and what's coming up and what, really, I kind of go back to like, what I take from a category that's not going to get me into trouble later, it's kind of a key thing. So another question we had, and I'll ask you this, Ernie, what categories do you kind of regularly overspend from? Like, what's the one that you just can't quite figure out?
It's the one that I think everyone would probably say or guess in this situation: groceries, household items, and eating out.
Yeah.
Those are the three.
Is it because like you don't budget enough, or like what's the reason for it?
Here's the thing. With overspending, those are also the categories that I always pull from. So it's almost like, especially with groceries, gas, and household items, those three combined, there's like a set amount of dollars for them each month. But how much we actually spend varies. And so we pull from each other throughout the month. Yeah. And that approach just works for us. So when we overspend on groceries, I check the gas category right away, or the household. And usually it's the gas that has a lot, because I work from home. Christy works close by. We don't do traveling right now. We're just not spending a lot of money, but we're still budgeting some dollars there every month. And then in other categories like household, if I have to pull from groceries, that'll take down our groceries budget, but I do all the grocery shopping and most of the cooking. And so I just know I have these go-to meals that are super cheap, right? They're horrible, but they're cheap. And we can get by a week of groceries on $100 or $125. So there's just a few levers that I end up pulling when it comes to overspending. And somehow it works for us, and it works for the budget.
I kind of like that, like having like a group of categories, maybe even literally a category group of like, it's almost like you can do some damage control like within those categories, like kind of isolate the overspending to those categories.
Yep.
And so long as you're not overspending by the big amount of that whole category group, you feel like you can be in a good place,
Right. And then we do have, a category or two, if we do overspend from that big group, that we pull from. But it's really painful to pull money from there. And so that just keeps us honest, right?
I really like that approach because there's certain categories that are really variable, like you said, like gas might be variable. Groceries, of course, is always a tricky one. And so rather than like slamming your head against a wall trying to get each one of those exactly right, instead just kind of take your approach of like, we're going to spend this much on all these things and we're going to track them separately because there's lots of good reasons to do that, but we'll kind of let it be fluid within that group there. I think that can be a really good approach.
And we always still try to hit our weekly amount for the grocery budget. But we just know that, 3 growing teenage boys, things like that, we're just not always going to be able to hit.
You just never know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah. Because I feel like we got small kids, and it's funny because I wrote like a couple of years ago, I wrote a blog about how we budget for groceries, and we're like really tight on groceries and all our planning. And everybody in the comments on that were like, "Oh, just wait till your kids grow up. Wait till they're teenagers."
Like, where did those 2 bags of chips go that I just bought? Like, they're gone for real? Come on.
Yeah, because right now it's like, for the most part, like we control, what the kids get. Like they come to us and say, "Can I have a snack?" Right? But when they're teenagers, I'm sure it's just grab a bag of chips, right? You can't have that control. You really shouldn't.
Grab a bag of apples, a bag of oranges, a gallon of milk. Like, come on. You just wait, Ben.
I think we're gonna have to take a more flexible approach when that happens, but we'll get there. Oh man. So what categories do I overspend from? Miscellaneous household items is always a struggle for us. And I think the reason why for that is because it's such a catch-all, like it's such a broad category, and it's hard to nail down. It's hard to plan for, you know what I mean? Because that covers, cleaning supplies, stuff like toilet paper, and just all that boring stuff. I actually keep that separate from my grocery category. I feel like we always overspend that. Although it has gotten better recently. We actually upped the amount that we budget there.
Yeah.
And we did that by looking at the average spent, and the amount that our goal was, I don't remember what it was. It's like $50, something like that. And then we look at the average spent, and it's like 75. And we're like, okay, actually, we really need more money here. So that's really helpful. Just kind of admitting,
So does it bother you that you overspend regularly, or is it just an accepted, like, it's just one of those very variable categories?
It's just one of those things, it doesn't bother me. It does bother me to like have to find the money from somewhere else, It's more of like a little minor annoyance because it's a task that needs to be done, But it doesn't make me feel like all the stuff we buy there is stuff we need. And I don't think we could do a whole lot to cut it back, So we've been dialing that in. I think we're actually in a pretty good place on that one now. But I say that. We'll see.
I'm the same way though. Overspending in like household and groceries, it doesn't really bother me because it's stuff that we need, and we're not going overboard. I'm not buying like 200 Tide Pod containers, and stacking up
fancy detergent and
right. Yeah, I'm just, I'm keeping things simple, but we need the stuff, so I'm going to buy it. It's when I overspend in, like an auto maintenance or one of those categories where maybe I didn't plan according. That makes me mad. I'm like, geez, now I got to roll with the punches. And
those are usually bigger too. So when if it's just, and that's another thing too is, I think it really does help just to admit, especially for categories like that, where it's just, you're just buying stuff you need. Like, just admit, hey, we need to budget more here, Yep. And then there's also other things like dining out. I also struggle with that. We always overspend dining out, like at least by a little bit. That's actually gotten better recently, I think, too. We actually had some left over last month, which is like never happened.
Whoa. You should get like a badge for that or something, a budgeting badge.
I was like, we're going to like have some roll over into the next month. Oh man. But I think one reason why that's gotten better is because we have budgeted more there. I remember we did there was one year where we decided to cut back. We like kind of slashed the budget in a lot of ways because we wanted to actually give more, which is like, really good thing. We were like, this is awesome. And so we like slashed the budget a lot, and we cut dining out by like a third, right? And we did that in January, and then all the way until like October, we just massively overspent in that category every month, like probably by the amount that we cut back. And I remember we were just looking at it and realizing, you know what? We just need to budget more here because it's actually something that we really value.
Yeah.
And clearly we value it because we're willing to overspend and move money from other categories, And so we started budgeting more there, and it's gotten better. But the thing about dining out, I think more than any other category, your desire almost like fills the budget. Like if you start, if you start budgeting more, it doesn't necessarily solve the problem because like you just want to eat out even more, So
yeah,
that's probably the one category I look at the most to be like, to like ask the question of like, can I go out to eat, So like I'll always get to the top on that no matter how much we budget. I don't think there'll ever be a point where we're like budgeting too much to dining out.
I know, because what we do is we schedule, it's really nerdy, but we schedule our eating out so that it's not just whenever we feel like it. So it's every Friday night we do takeout. And then also on Monday nights when I teach late, we do dollar menu at one of the local fast food restaurants. And so that gets us to a certain amount. But yeah, then if at the end of the month there happens to be a little bit left over, we will then find a random day to eat out to use up that money, So yeah, the desire will fill that category.
I'm gonna do that in the middle. Like I'll often do like a little calculation in my head with that category of like, okay, well there's $200 there and there's 3 weekends. So, whoa, like I always have this moment. I'm like, whoa, we got like $60, $70 a weekend in there. Like we could go out to eat, like we'll often do that where it's like, oh, well, we got like $70 a weekend. So it's Tuesday. We could spend some of that now, So like, the pacing kind of goes along with how, where you're at in the month. And I think that's a fine way to do it. But yeah, we definitely, definitely fill that up no matter what. So, we kind of talked about this already. What are your go-to Rule 3 categories?
The go-tos, they're the groceries, the gas, the household. And I will say a little bit more on this. I just don't like pulling from other categories because basically outside of those monthly expenses, everything else, at least in my mind, is a saving category. Right. So I'm trying to add to that and build up. And I love seeing those balances grow from month to month. So when I have to pull from them, it really hurts.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Like those Rule 2 categories, they kind of feel kind of sacred.
They do. I mean?
Like it's almost like sacrilegious to take the money from there from like, I don't know, auto maintenance, or we keep going back to auto maintenance. But that's the quintessential example, right? Or you like, oh, I'm going to take some money from like Christmas, and I'm like taking money from the children, or something. I'm an evil person. Like what kind of a Scrooge is gonna grab some money from Christmas or something like that?
Right. But what I'm not thinking in the moment though is that if I were to take something from Christmas in this example, I could always make up for it the next month or in the future month because of the goal type that I have set up. Like it's going to keep me on pace to getting that amount that I need by December, but
you'll be accountable to it eventually.
Yeah, but my mind is just so locked into this monthly structure.
Yeah, well, that kind of goes back to like, am I going to regret this later? Because if I took some money out of Christmas fund or something like that, well, next month I'm going to have a reckoning. I'm going to have to find that money, right? So it's for me the Rule 2 stuff it's going to happen. So why take the money from there, especially if you got it really dialed in? Now, I did mention before, like I might take like $8 or something like that from auto maintenance or something like that if I needed it. But massive amounts, I'm usually pretty careful about that. Sometimes I'll like shave off a little bit. Like if I have like a big amount of overspending, I'll like shave off a little bit from all the Rule 2 expenses, and that kind of helps. But you just got to be mindful of how often you're doing that.
All right. So how about this one? Largest unexpected expense that you had to roll with. Have you had one of those recently? Or maybe just ever?
I'm trying to think like ever. I would say this year, probably the first thing that popped in my head when you asked that was we had a big tax rate. We were short on our taxes this year. I guess I messed up my withholdings a little bit, and we owed $1,500 on taxes, and that was a big
Ouch.
that was a big old hit. Yeah, for sure. So, and it's funny because like we have this like skill now, because we've been budgeting for so long. That amount of money would have completely blown me over before I started using YNAB, or even like the first year I was using YNAB, and it's not so much because of the amount. I mean, the amount is a lot, but it's because I didn't have the confidence or like the skills to know, okay, I'm going to be able to handle this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the budget that just has a lot of categories built up, So yeah, I don't remember exactly where we took some of that money from. We've been putting a lot of extra on the house lately because we're trying to pay off our house early. So I think we pulled back a little bit on that, and I shaved a bunch from some Rule 2 expenses and found the money. So like it's actually kind of great because like, we got this big tax bill and it's like, oh, it's a bummer. It's always, you never want to do that. But
yeah.
But we were able to handle it, and it wasn't the end of the world.
Yep. And that feels good. Like you met it head on and boom, like you said, you handled it. I was thinking back to pre-YNAB days for me, and we just didn't deal with overspending.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of, it'll take care of itself, but taking care of itself led to more credit card debt.
Exactly,
and our checking account balance being around 0 at the end of every single month. Meeting it head on is scary, but boy, with that Rule 3 rolling with the punches basically built into the app, like it shows you it's not that scary and you can do this thing.
Yeah. It makes a big difference. So yeah, I think that's the first thing that popped in my head. Do you have anything in particular, like a really big expense?
Not a good story like what you have.
Oh,
we've just been really lucky, I feel like. I mean,
yeah.
The one I think of, and I think I've already shared it on Budget Nerds, is our sewer backed up, the sewer line backed up just slightly into the basement on Christmas because of those stupid roots.
I forgot that was on Christmas.
It was on Christmas, and so we had to pay, like time and a half.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the money.
That it was on Christmas that happened to you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I already had a category for this annual removing of roots from the sewer line.
Mm-hmm.
But this had come just a few months after the guy had already been out there. And so it just wasn't full of cash. And so then we had to pull money from somewhere else. And that just made me mad. But yeah, I was like, okay, well, we have it, no big deal. And I forgot about it.
That's not just, I mean, like both of our stories, it's not just the overspending. It's like all the emotions behind it. Like, I got a tax bill. That's a bummer. Nobody likes that. You got sewer backing up in your house on Christmas. That's so fun, so.
Well, and, that kind of stuff, it just, what I do is I just stew on it, right? And I just think about it and think about it and think about it. But I had the money. And so I thought about it for like an hour and I moved on and enjoyed Christmas.
That's great.
But old Ernie, without a budget, like I would have been a mess all weekend.
Right. It would ruin your whole holiday.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. That's what it is. Like, this stuff it's not like when you start budgeting, this stuff is not going to happen to you, but you have a plumbing problem. You don't have a money problem on top of the plumbing problem, and you can just move on, so that's huge.
Yeah, those new
and it does take some time. It's not like as soon as you start budgeting you're gonna like be able to cover anything that happens to you. Like if you're just getting started, you might have to use debt for some of these things for a little while, but it gets better and better and better as you become more and more resilient as you budget. So
okay, here's a question for you. Have you ever abused Rule 3?
Oh,
I mean, just like, I don't care. I mean, I think we all
am guilty.
Right?
I am guilty sometimes of saying we'll figure it out later, and not checking the budget ahead of time. Like this is like such a mantra and I like preach it all the time, but I still struggle with it sometimes, especially when you're like in the moment and something comes up and you don't know what to do. Like I remember this year, we had some friends who had a tragedy, a death in their family. And so we needed to bring them some food, do the whole thing that you do in the South here and in the Midwest, I'm sure. Right. And we needed to move quickly, and we didn't have any money set aside for that in our compassion category, but we were just like, we're just going to do it. Obviously we went and picked up something for them. And in that moment, I was just like, oh, we'll figure it out later. Right. I had the freedom to do that in that moment. Right. But there's other times where it's not so cut and dry, where it's just, oh, we want to eat out now. And, if I'm out and about, sometimes I won't check the budget ahead of time, and I'll kind of figure it out later. So I think that can actually sometimes almost be a temptation if you've been budgeting for a long time and you've built up some money in a lot of categories. It can almost be harder to avoid that trap of, we'll figure it out later. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's something, maybe to watch out for, because it really does make a difference to find the money first. And it makes a big difference emotionally. It makes it easier just to cover the overspending.
And like you said, keeping your future self in mind.
Yes,
am I going to regret this in the future?
Being kind to your future self. So yeah, as far as abusing rule 3, I do that sometimes. I just say, oh, you know what, we'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
And I always think I'm you teach people not to do this thing that you're doing right now. So,
but we are, emotional human beings, right? I mean, I do the same thing. And usually it's when, Christy and I are having a date or time away from the boys, and we're just like, we're going to eat out again. Right. Or, we're just going to do this thing and we'll figure it out later.
That happened. Like I was on a date with my wife, last weekend, and we were like, oh, let's run and grab some ice cream, this place. And I knew in my head, I don't think we have any money in entertainment. Right. But I was in this moment, I was like, we're on this date right now. We're just going to do it. But it probably would have been better if, I pulled out my budget then and found the money ahead of time, even discreetly,
Yep.
I probably would have felt better later, but it's one of those things you got to give yourself grace for.
Well, as we wrap this up, I thought it'd be fun if we just maybe toss out a few situations, overspending situations, to see how the other person would handle it.
Okay.
Maybe these will be funny. Maybe they'll be really, really lame.
All right.
We'll give it a shot. So I'm going to start with you. Situation is, now you and your spouse both have personal spending categories, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
So Caitlin overspends her personal category. What do you do? How do you cover that overspending?
Man. Well, first of all, that would never happen because my wife Caitlin is an excellent budgeter. But what would we do? Well, you know what? You can take a hard line and be like, oh, you gotta take that from maybe your next month's overspending or something like that. But I find an approach with more grace is better. Because my wife, we actually do this. Here's a good example. It's not exactly overspending, but it's kind of related. We have 2 cash accounts in our budget. So I have an account called Ben Wallet and an account called Katie Wallet, right? So it's our own personal cash accounts. And I don't know, we just like tracking cash that way. And our rule when we made those accounts was, okay, you gotta be in charge of reconciling your own wallet account, right? And if you mess up and you don't reconcile for a while and you didn't track all your cash, that money needs to come out of your personal spending, right?
Yep.
So that's a good example. But so we have this kind of hard rule, right? Of it's gonna be real harsh. But I don't think we've ever actually enforce that rule. There have been times where I have lost $20, in cash, because tracking cash is hard. And same thing with my wife, but we always take the money from somewhere else. We always come to each other and like, well, I lost $20. I guess I'm going to take it from my personal spending, we're like, and then the other person's like, no, let's not do that,
Right.
So I think it's actually kind of good to have a rule, if you overspend on this, you're going to cover it from, X, Y, or Z. But then in the moment you can decide to have grace for each other. And if one has grace for the other can have grace for the other person, and you just kind of are both taken care of that way.
Okay.
So yeah, usually we find the money from somewhere else and just keep right on rolling.
Nice.
All right, Ernie, I got to come up with a scenario for you now. This is kind of an interesting one. Let's talk about like reimbursements a little bit. Like, let's suppose you cover, like maybe you go out to lunch with a friend or something, and you cover their lunch, and they say they'll pay you back, and then they don't pay you back for like 3 weeks or something like that. What do you do in that situation?
I'm cringing because all I can see in my mind is that red notification on the YNAB app that I have an overspent category.
So you don't want to leave it overspent just because that little red one's going to nag you.
Exactly. So here's what I would do. I would split transaction this. It would be my personal money because I'm eating out with no one else from the family. And then I do their half to my reimbursements category.
Okay.
And then I would cover that overspending. You know, as time would, like right away out of the gate, I wouldn't cover it. You know, I would give them the benefit. Yeah, benefit of the doubt. Hey,
your friend to help you out.
You're going to pay me back.
He's faithful here, right?
But after a couple text messages, I realized this is going to be a while. And so then what I would do is I would just cover the overspending because that notification is driving me so nuts.
Right.
I cover it with my own personal money.
Okay.
And then as soon as I get that money, if I forget, I can always use recent moves to see where I pulled that overspending from. And this is something that I actually did. I used recent moves to find out where I covered overspending from. So nice. I think that's really slick. And I could even flag that transaction, but I don't know. Yeah. Maybe at this point, I just know that friend is never going to pay me back, and I just eat the cost. Just
don't even ask for a reimbursement anymore. Yeah, that's a good idea. Just like having like a specific reimbursement category, because we talk about that, but usually when we talk about like having a reimbursement category, we're talking about like work expenses and stuff like that. You know, like people that
know you're going to get the money back.
Yeah, or like you have like a lot of reimbursable expenses in your life. I always say like, have like a work expense category or have a reimbursable category. I don't have one, but there are a lot of times where that would be really useful to actually split it out into a reimbursable category. So yeah, I might do that. That's a good idea. Well, Ernie, it's been fun talking about Rule 3 and all the struggles and all the fun stuff around that.
It has been fun. I would love to hear from the community. Hear from you all. What do you think? How do you deal with overspending? Give us some stories. Make us laugh. Make us cry. Well, maybe don't make us cry.
Yeah, whatever you got. We'd love to hear your stories around Rule 3 and how you handle things. But until next time, y'all, why don't we say happy budgeting, and we'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.